You wake up in 1863, and the first thing you notice isn't the gunfire. It's the smell. A thick, choking cocktail of wood smoke, sweat, horse manure, and something that might be rotting meat. Or a dead guy. You try not to think too hard about which. The ground beneath you is damp and sticky. Your blanket is basically a rag, and your pillow is your own arm. Somewhere off in the distance, a cannon booms, and the vibration rolls under you like distant thunder. This is not your bed, your house, or your century. Welcome to the middle of the American Civil War. You sit up, or at least you try. Your back feels like you've been sleeping on a pile of bricks, which technically you have, if you count frozen dirt and the occasional rock as bricks. Your clothes aren't really clothes anymore. They're a stiff, greasy second skin, smelling like a mix of mildew and campfire. The buttons are mismatched, the fabric is torn in places, and the color is so faded you are not sure what army you are in just by looking. There's a canteen at your side, but the water in it is warm and tastes like it's been scooped from a swamp. You drink it anyway. The air is hazy, not from morning fog, but from the leftover smoke drifting from yesterday's battle. Every breath tastes like burnt metal. You glance around and see a patchwork sea of tents, some sagging, some collapsed, some so filthy they're more mud than canvas. Men shuffle about in various stages of consciousness, some yawning, some swearing, some staring blankly at nothing. There's a distant sound of a bugle calling out, but no one moves fast. War might be urgent, but mornings are still miserable. A few feet away, someone heating up coffee. Coffee, here being a generous term for black sludge boiled in a dented tin pot. The guy offers you a sip, and it's bitter enough to make your tongue want to secede from your mouth. This is the breakfast of champions. If the champions are exhausted, malnourished, and possibly dying of dysentery. There's no good morning here, no cheerful chatter, just grunts, coughs, and the occasional curse word when someone steps in something unpleasant. And yes, the ground is full of unpleasant things. You quickly learn that in a Civil War camp, the term bathroom means anywhere that's not directly in your tent. The smell is unavoidable. Off to one side, a blacksmith hammers at a horseshoe, sparks flying into the cool morning air. The sound is sharp and rhythmic, like a metronome for chaos. Horses snort and stamp, their breath steaming. A soldier with a torn sleeve is trying to repair it with a needle so bent it looks like it has been through 3 wars already. Someone else is reading a crumpled newspaper, muttering about battles you've never heard of, while a kid, yes, a literal kid, maybe 14, polishes a drum that's almost as big as he is, and then there's the soundtrack you can't escape. Distant shouting, somewhere a gun firing, the eerie creak of wagon wheels on muddy paths. No matter where you look, everything feels temporary, makeshift. Even the ground seems unsure it wants to hold you up. You take a few steps toward the edge of camp, and that's when you see it. The field where the fighting happened. It's not cinematic. It's not like the movies where there's a noble hero pose in slow motion. It's ugly. Patches of churned-up earth stained darker than mud. Abandoned gear, a hat here, a broken rifle there, and silence. The kind that makes your skin crawl. Someone shouts your name. Or maybe it's someone else's name, but you turn anyway. A man in a ragged coat waves you over, pressing a tin plate into your hands. Breakfast. A biscuit so hard you could chip a tooth on it, and a strip of bacon so thin it's basically pork-flavored paper. You eat it anyway because you don't know when the next meal's coming. The sun climbs higher, but it doesn't make anything look better. The light just makes the wear and tear more obvious. The cracked boots, the hollow cheeks, the way everyone carries themselves like they're already halfway to the grave. And yet, people keep moving, keep talking, keep laughing at bad jokes that wouldn't even get a pity chuckle back home. That's the thing about waking up here. There's no easing into the day, no time to stretch and yawn. You're either preparing for a march, preparing for a fight, or preparing to patch yourself up after one. There's no in-between. And even if today turns out to be a quiet day, Quiet doesn't mean safe. Quiet just means the war hasn't found you yet. You look around and it hits you. You're in the middle of one of the bloodiest conflicts in American history. No one here knows how it's going to end. The newspapers make guesses, the generals make speeches, but down here in the mud and the smoke, the only thing you know for sure is that you have to survive until nightfall. And then survive the night. And then do it all again. You feel the weight of it, the sheer scale of it. This isn't just some history book chapter. This is your life now. Your mornings are no longer about alarms and coffee runs. They're about cannons, ration lines, and keeping your boots dry enough that your feet don't rot off. And as you watch a group of soldiers laughing over some inside joke while smoke drifts over the camp, you realize something else. You don't know if you'll still be here tomorrow. Your job is not glamorous. In fact, calling it a job feels wrong, because a job is something you sign up for and can quit when it gets too awful. Here, you didn't sign up for anything. Or maybe you did, in a burst of patriotic fever after a rousing speech back home, only to find out the recruiter skipped over a few key details, like the fact that most of your daily tasks involve varying degrees of misery. If you've got a rifle, your day starts with cleaning it, over and over, because in this war, your weapon is your lifeline. And a single misfire could be the difference between walking away or being carried away. The process is tedious. Pull it apart, scrape away the black powder residue, oil it, reassemble it. The oil smells sharp, almost medicinal, and clings to your fingers for hours. You'll smell like it when you try to eat, sleep, or talk to anyone. And it is not like you. We got soap to wash it off properly. Just cold water in a tin basin if you're lucky. Once the rifle's ready, you line up for drill. Drill is basically an exercise in obedience and endurance. March forward, turn left, march again, turn right. Shoulder arms, present arms, fix bayonets, repeat. The ground is uneven and muddy, the wind is sharp enough to bite, and your officer is yelling at you like you personally offended him. And maybe you did. Yesterday you were half a step out of line, and now you're the example. If you're not armed infantry, you might be stuck with something even worse. Maybe you're on latrine duty, digging new trenches for the camp's waste. The smell is exactly as bad as you think, and the flies are relentless. You try to breathe through your mouth, but that's somehow worse. Every scoop of dirt feels heavier than the last, and every now and then you have to dodge the splash of something you don't want to identify. Or you could be in the medical tent. The surgeons are tired, their aprons stiff with dried blood, and their tools look like they belong in a butcher shop. You hold down a man screaming so hard his voice cracks, while the doctor saws through bone like it's firewood. The sound is sickening, a grinding, splintering scrape that makes you want to crawl out of your own skin. You try not to look at the bucket in the corner, the one filling with what's left of people. You've been told to keep it emptied, and you pray you won't have to. And then there's guard duty. Standing still for hours at a time, eyes scanning the tree line, listening for anything unusual. Your feet ache, your hands go numb in the cold, and the minutes drag until they feel like hours. Sometimes you think you hear movement, but it's just a squirrel. Other times, it's an actual scout or spy, and then you have to make decisions a lot faster than you'd like. When you're not working, you're waiting. Waiting for orders, waiting for food, waiting for someone to tell you what to do next. And waiting in war is its own kind of torture. Your mind wanders to home, to warm beds and real meals. And you have to drag it back because thinking about what you've lost will only make the day feel longer. Speaking of meals, they're hardly worth the wait. Breakfast might be hardtack, a cracker so solid you need to bang it on your rifle butt to crack it open. Lunch could be salt pork, so salty it makes your mouth pucker for hours, and if you're lucky, you might get beans for dinner. If you're unlucky, it's the same hardtack from breakfast, now even harder. The men make jokes about it, calling it teeth breakers, and pretending to use it as playing cards. Humor keeps you from going mad. If you happen to be on the march, your job becomes walking. For miles. Sometimes in rain that soaks you to the bone, sometimes in heat that makes the air shimmer. Your pack digs into your shoulders, your socks rub your feet raw, and the road seems to stretch forever. The only breaks are when someone ahead of you collapses, and even then, you're ordered to step around them and keep moving. There's also the occasional special assignment. This could mean delivering a message through contested territory, trying to avoid being spotted by enemy patrols while running full tilt through woods and fields. Or it could mean scavenging for supplies, which sounds simple until you realize it often means sneaking into half-burned towns to grab whatever food or blankets are left before someone else does. The truth is, no matter what your official role is, you'll probably end up doing a bit of everything. One day you're hauling water from a stream, the next you're stacking ammunition crates, and the day after that you're filling sandbags to reinforce a trench. It's all work that leaves your back aching and your hands blistered, and then there's the constant background layer of cleaning, or more accurately, trying to keep the worst of the filth from killing you. You scrape mud off your boots, shake straw out of your blanket, and pick lice out of your seams. The lice are inevitable, tiny gray specks that cling to the stitching of your clothes and to your hair. No matter how many you find, there are always more. You joke about them being your battle buddies, but deep down, you hate them with a quiet, burning passion. By evening, you're exhausted, but your job isn't over. You help unload wagons, stand watch, or dig trenches until the light fades. Your hands are numb, your legs feel like lead, and your stomach growls like an angry dog. If you're lucky, you get a fire to sit by, though you're careful not to make it too bright in case it draws attention. The smoke stings your eyes, but at least it keeps the mosquitoes away for a while. And then, when you finally crawl into your tent or under your blanket, you realize your job starts again in just a few hours. The war doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you're sore, hungry, or sick. You're here to do whatever's needed, whether it's holding a rifle, digging a hole, or carrying someone who can't walk anymore. You close your eyes knowing the morning will bring another round of the same, and maybe something worse. The people around you are the only thing standing between you and total isolation, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Every face here tells a story. Some you want to hear, some you'd rather not. Your closest neighbor in camp is a guy named Carter, though no one's sure if that's his first or last name. He's missing 2 teeth, swears more than he breathes, and has a habit of whittling sticks into crude little figures that look vaguely like the officers. Carter's a decent shot, but he's also the kind of man who will trade away your last piece of salt pork for a cigar and then ask if he can borrow your blanket. Across the way is Jennings, who talks about his farm back home like it's the Garden of Eden. Chickens that laid golden eggs, cornfields that practically grew themselves, and a barn that never leaked a drop. You've heard the stories so many times you could recite them yourself. Whether they read true or not doesn't matter. Jennings tells them because if he doesn't he might start talking about the things he's seen here. And those memories are the kind you keep buried. Then there's O'Malley, the Irishman with a laugh so loud it could startle birds out of trees. He drinks like water is optional, fights at the drop of a hat, and somehow always comes out of it with fewer injuries than the other guy. He calls you kid no matter your age, insists he's fought in 3 wars and a dozen bar rooms, and claims he's immortal until proven otherwise. You believe him a little more every time he walks away from something that should be killed him. Your commanding officer is a man named Captain Reeves, who speaks in clipped sentences and walks like he's got a bayonet for a spine. He's been in the Army since before you were born, and it shows. His uniform is always immaculate, his boots polished even in the mud, and he never seems cold, no matter how the wind cuts. Reeves doesn't yell much, he doesn't need to. One glare from him can make a man stand straighter than any parade ground drill. The drummer boy, Sam, is barely 13, with hands too small for the sticks he carries. His job is to set the pace for marches and signal commands during battle. In reality, he's also the camp's unofficial mascot. Men give him extra food, teach him card tricks, and swear they'll protect him. You've seen him run messages under fire, face pale but determined, and you wonder if anyone will ever know his name in the history books. Probably not. Not everyone is a friend. You've got rivals, too. Men who glare when you pass, who mutter about you behind your back, who might accidentally misplace your gear if you cross them. Sometimes it's over something petty. You got the last clean water, or you won in a card game. Other times, it's deeper. Maybe you said something they took the wrong way, or maybe you're just a reminder of someone they lost. Either way, the tension simmers. You can't forget the sutler, the traveling merchant who sells luxuries like tobacco, coffee, and candy at prices so high you'd think he was charging by the heartbeat. He's a sharp-eyed man with a permanent smirk, the kind of guy who, "I'll tell you a tin of beans is imported just to justify the cost." Everyone grumbles about him. But when you're desperate for a taste of home, you'll hand over whatever coins you've managed to save. In the evenings, you all gather around the fires. The talk shifts from politics to jokes to ghost stories. One man swears he saw a headless rider near the old road. Another tells a story about a soldier who went missing and was found weeks later, living in the woods with no memory of who he was. You laugh when you can, because laughter is one of the few things you have left that doesn't cost you something. But when tempers flare, they flare hot. A wrong look, a careless word, and suddenly two men are squared off, fists clenched. The fights are quick and brutal. No rules, no referees. Most end with a split lip and bruised pride. But every now and then, someone doesn't get back up so quickly. Those moments make everyone quieter for a while. The officers mingle less, staying in their own tents or around their own fires. They have their own brand of politics, whispers about strategy and promotions. Sometimes you catch fragments of conversation, talk of reinforcements that never seem to arrive, rumors of an upcoming battle that make your stomach knot. You also deal with the locals when there are any left in the area, farmers who eye you with suspicion, children who stare like you're a ghost in blue or gray. Some sell you eggs or milk if they can spare it. Others slam doors in your face. And sometimes you walk into a village and find it abandoned. Shutters banging in the wind, the air heavy with the smell of something burned. The mix of personalities keeps camp life unpredictable. One day you were sharing a joke with Carter about how his whittled figure looks more like a chicken than the captain. The next you were avoiding Jennings because he is in a dark mood and wanted to stop pacing. O'Malley might be singing at the top of his lungs one night and dead silent the next, staring into the fire like he can see something in it the rest of you can't. The truth is, the people you deal with become your world. You learn their habits, their tempers, their tells. You know who will share their rations and who will guard them like gold. You know who can be counted on in a fight, and who might vanish the second the shooting starts. Trust is currency here, earned slowly and spent carefully. And when you march into battle, all those quirks and grudges fade. The man you argued with yesterday might be the one who drags you to safety tomorrow. The one you laughed with around the fire might be gone before the sun sets. War strips people down to their core, and what you see isn't always pretty, but it's real. These are the people you live with, fight with, and sometimes bury. They're your brothers, your enemies, your competition, and your family all at once. And whether you like them or not, you're bound together by the same mud, the same smoke, the same endless noise of a country tearing itself apart. Night doesn't fall here so much as it seeps in, creeping like cold water into every corner of camp. The sun dips low, painting the horizon in blood-red streaks that feel a little too on the nose, and the shadows grow long and jagged. By the time darkness takes over, the world is stripped down to the flicker of campfires and the silhouettes of men hunched close to them, muttering or staring silently into the flames. The air cools fast, the kind of sharp cold that makes your breath look like smoke, and the sounds of the day, hammers, drills, shouts, fade into something slower, heavier. It should feel peaceful, but it doesn't. The stillness is a liar. Somewhere beyond the firelight there's movement, the rustle of dry leaves, the snap of a twig. Could be a rabbit. Could be a man with a rifle pointed at you. Every noise feels like it's aimed directly at your nerves. Your ears work harder in the dark because your eyes can't keep up. On guard duty, the darkness presses in so close you start imagining shapes in it. Trees turn into enemy scouts. Bushes turn into crouched figures. Sometimes you hear whispers that turn out to be the wind, but they still make you shift your grip on your rifle. The blackness is broken only by the occasional orange, blink of a pipe ember, or the faint glow of the moon filtering through clouds. Your boots crunch in the frost when you move, too loud in the quiet. If you're not on guard, you're trying to sleep, but sleep is generous. You wrap yourself in a thin blanket, feel every stone and root digging into your back, and close your eyes while your brain cycles through a highlight reel of the worst-case scenarios. You hear the low groans of the wounded in the medical tent, some so constant they blend into the background, others sharp enough to snap you awake. There's the sound of rats scurrying in the dark, their claws scratching on wood and fabric, looking for crumbs. One runs across your boots and you jolt so hard you almost wake the guy next to you. The campfires don't give enough light to see much, but they give enough for the enemy to see you if they're looking. You've been warned about raids, quick surgical attacks meant to cause chaos and vanish before you can organize. The officers say they don't happen often, but that doesn't make you feel any better. Every time the fire pops, you wonder if it's covering the sound of footsteps. Sometimes, you hear the low, distant boom of artillery. Not close enough to be an immediate threat, but close enough to remind you it's out there, waiting. It echoes across the night like a warning. Then there are the closer dangers, deserters slipping away, hoping the dark will swallow them before anyone notices. Some are caught and dragged back. Some aren't. And every now and then, a shot rings out in the dark, and you never hear who it hit. The smell at night is worse than during the day. Without the wind to carry it off, the mix of smoke, sweat, rot, and unwashed bodies just hangs there, thick and sour. If you're downwind of the latrine trenches, it's enough to make your stomach twist. The fires help a little, the wood smoke masking the stench for a while, but eventually your nose adjusts and the bad smells crawl back in. There's another kind of danger, too, the kind that comes from your own side. Men drink to forget, and when the bottles run dry, tempers flare. Fights break out in the shadows where the officers can't see, fists swinging, boots kicking. You keep your distance, because stepping in could mean catching a punch meant for someone else. In the morning, bruises and split lips are explained away with a shrug. When the moon's out, you can see just enough to make the shadows worse. Every movement in the tree line feels deliberate. The wind moves through the branches like someone breathing. You keep your rifle close even when you're off duty, because the line between safe and not safe is paper thin out here. If you're unlucky, you get sent beyond the camp at night, maybe to check the picket lines, maybe to deliver a message. Out there, the dark feels alive. Your boots sink into the cold earth. Your breath sounds too loud, and your pulse roars in your ears. You count the steps back to camp like they're lifelines, everyone pulling you closer to the thin illusion of safety. Back in camp, the wounded sometimes cry out in their sleep. You hear the doctors moving around by lantern light, murmuring to each other, their shadows stretching tall against the tent walls. You know some of those men won't live until morning. You also know there's nothing you can do about it. And that is its own kind of danger, the helplessness that creeps in when the night gets too long. There's a moment just before dawn when the cold is at its worst and the dark feels the heaviest. That's when it's hardest to stay awake, hardest to keep your guard up. Your eyes droop, your grip loosens, and you tell yourself you'll just blink for a second. That second could be the one where something moves out there, quick and quiet. You jolt yourself awake, heart pounding, staring into the nothing, until the gray light starts to seep back in. When the morning finally comes, the camp exhales. The fire pits are cold, the men are stiff and bleary-eyed, and whatever passed in the night stays mostly unspoken. If there were footsteps, if there were whispers, if there was movement in the tree line, no one admits it. You shake off the night, because the day has its own dangers waiting. And yet, you know it will come again. The darkness, the whispers, the long hours of listening for trouble that may or may not be there. Every night, the camp feels like it's holding its breath, and every morning, you're just grateful you're still breathing at all. The war is everywhere, in the ground under your boots, in the air you breathe, in the way people look at each other when they think no one's watching. You can't escape it, not even in your thoughts. Every conversation, every meal, every restless night circles back to the same truth. The country is tearing itself apart, and you are one of the threads holding it together, or maybe being pulled apart with it. You've heard the speeches. Union men talk about saving the republic, keeping the states together, finishing the fight so no one can challenge it again. Confederate men speak of honor, sovereignty, and their way of life, a phrase that sounds noble until you remember it's built on chains and human misery. You didn't start this war, but you're inside it now, and there's no climbing out. The slogans feel smaller here, on the ground, where the war is just mud, blood, and men doing whatever it takes to see another sunrise. Death is constant, but it's not always loud. Sometimes it's the soldier who simply doesn't wake up in the morning. Sometimes it's the man who survives the battle only to rot away from fever in the medical tent. You bury them quietly, marking the grave if there's time, and then you keep moving. Mourning is a luxury the war doesn't give you often. You've seen bravery here, real bravery, the kind that doesn't look like paintings or statues. It's the man who crawls out under fire to drag someone back. It is the cook who divides the last of the food so no one goes hungry that night. It is the drummer boy running into a field full of smoke because someone told him the captain was down and needed help. And you've seen cowardice too, the man who disappears just before the battle begins, the one who hoards water while others beg for a sip. The war peels people down to their rawest selves. Some come out shining, others show rot. It is easy to get caught up in the fighting and forget what it is all for. Out here, the causes don't always feel close. You are not standing on a soapbox debating policy. You are trying to keep your rifle dry and your boots from splitting. And yet, the cause is in everything. Every order, every march, every casualty is another stroke in the bigger picture, one you'll probably never see fully. You've learned that victory doesn't look like you thought it would. Sometimes it's just holding the same patch of ground you started with. Sometimes it's walking into a silent town and realizing the enemy left before you got there. Loss doesn't always look like defeat either. Sometimes you lose half your company, but still get told it was a success because the other side lost more. Numbers on paper don't show the smell of the battlefield, the color of the sky after a cannon barrage, the sound of a man's last breath. You've seen how the war changes people. Jennings, the farmer, doesn't talk about home much anymore. Carter stopped carving his little wooden soldiers. O'Malley still laughs, but it's quieter now, and sometimes it stops suddenly like he remembered where he is. Even Captain Reeves, who once seemed carved from granite, stares at nothing for long stretches before snapping back to attention. You don't notice these changes day by day, but one night you look around the fire and realize no one here is the same as they were when you met them. It's not just the people who change, the land changes too. Fields you march through one week are battlefields the next, littered with splintered wagons and shattered trees. Towns are burned-out shells. Rivers run cloudy with churned-up mud, ash, and sometimes worse. The war doesn't pass through places. It swallows them and leaves something unrecognizable behind. You start to understand that winning doesn't mean going back to the way things were. There is no going back. Even if you survive this, you'll carry it with you. The sounds, the smells, the faces, the weight of knowing you were here when the country cracked open. People will ask you about it someday, and you'll have to decide how much to tell them. Do you give them the clean version, the one fit for polite company? Or do you tell them the truth, that it was ugly and confusing and that no one came out of it untouched? And here's the strange part. In the middle of all this horror, you find moments you want to keep. Sitting by the fire with men who would bleed for you, watching the sun rise over a foggy field, feeling the sudden relief when a distant volley turns out to be thunder. War is made of contradictions like that. You hate it, but you also know you'll never be this close to some people again. You've shared too much with them, faced too much together. You think about the future sometimes, in quiet moments. What kind of country will this be when it's over? Will it be worth what it cost? You tell yourself it has to be, because otherwise, all of this, the marches, the hunger, the graves, was for nothing. That is the thought you hold on to when the nights stretch too long and the days blur together. But deep down, you know the war's not just about the big speeches or the final treaty. It's about what it does to the people in it. It's about you, standing here with your rifle, wondering if you're going to make it out alive, wondering who you'll be if you do. Someday people will read about this in books. They'll memorize the names of battles, the dates, the generals. They won't smell the rot in the air or hear the low moans at night. They want to know what it is like to watch a friend as face goes still or to feel your own heartbeat hammering as you wait in the dark for something you can see. They'll get the facts, but not the weight. That weight will belong to you and to everyone who stood here. Whether you believe in the cause or not, whether you fought for the Union or the Confederacy, you've lived through something that can't be neatly packaged into a paragraph. You've seen a nation divided and you've walked through the middle of that split. So now you ask yourself, when it's over, what will you carry? The pride of surviving? The guilt of what you had to do? Maybe both. Probably both. And when the last shot is fired and the last order is given, will you be able to set it down? Or will you find it follows you home, settling into your bones, a quiet reminder of the time you stood in the middle of history while it tried to tear itself apart?